coffee. Got my coffee's here. Yum. So just wanted to see where everybody's at in their process for maybe what's going on, what they're seeing around them. Good morning, Jose. And the world as it shifts, right? We're seeing a lot of shifting, changing, new things being unveiled, sort of light put on the darkness. There's just different things are showing up for people, and want to just kind of check in to see where everybody is in their process of handling what's going on. So some people that may be business owners, people who may be without work, people who maybe are now having to homeschool their children, people that are, just trying to make it work or working from home when they weren't used to, people that, so everything is sort of shifted. And really what's happening is there's a setup for what's next. We get to create the what's next. We get to be the ones to develop the what's next. Good morning, Suze. And how do we start to engage in the what's next? Now, when all of this started to occur, right, when all of this started to unfold and we started to see the shift in different areas and, they shut down everything and all this stuff started to happen. There was we have to accept what we're seeing around us because it's a new norm. And of course, there's fear and there's uncertainty. There's this, I don't know what's going on. And there's a process. And I was, like I said, talking to a friend of mine. My friend said, well, what are you doing to support people into what's next? If systems were to be ripped apart and structures, what are you supporting with? And I said, that's a great question. And I thought, am I, or what can I do, or how can I be of value and support? And here is the reality. So we have the potential to create the what's next. Now we can wait on people to tell us what's next. We can wait for a government or individual people to tell us what's next. But the reality is, and the excitement behind this is, we have the opportunity to create what's next. We have the power. So this morning I was thinking, there's a lot of, the darkness is we're starting to shed light on some of the dark things that are happening in the world. And just some pretty horrific stuff, right? We're just like, wow, it's crazy. But I would say that more of humanity is good than wanting to use manipulation. I don't want to say bad, but more people want to do what's righteous than what's manipulation and control. And there's people out there that do want to manipulate and will manipulate you. So the reality is like, if the individuals who have a good heart, who want the best for the world. Good morning, Betty. How are you? And are just wanting the best for this world, that they come together to determine what's next. There's more of us, I believe. More of the people that have a good heart, have, want to do the right thing, don't want to be in control and manipulate others to stay in control. But there are people who will do that. So they ask, well, why do the 1%, that are controlling the money and the wealth and all this, why is it just 1%? Well, because they're probably willing to do stuff that most people won't. And it's probably not good stuff. Because look at history, and we had wars, right? There was wars, like, I'm going to take your land, I'm just going to chop you up and put you in the grave and take your land, and that's it, and I'm not going to care. That happened. There was slaughter, there was blood, there was people massacring people, there was concentration camps. I mean, there was a lot of crazy stuff that's happened in history. And rather than people wanting to fight, they were like, no, we're not going to fight. There was some people who just said no, and others who fought back to defend their lands. because they were being attacked. Now, this happens. And people will say, I'm going to take. So there are people out there, the ones that perhaps the 1%ers are willing to do that. For what? I don't know. I don't know. It's not my prerogative. I can't really, I personally don't understand that mindset. I could never understand that mindset. So I pray, because to me, what do we don't have power and control over anything but our own bodies, our own minds, and our own way of engaging in the world. Now we can coerce somebody into, like an innocent person who doesn't know, into thinking we have power over them, and perhaps we force them, but is that real true power? What does that mean? So I think the real power lies within us and who we are. The power and the will to connect to God and to do the will of our own work, which is harder. It's easier for some people to look outside themselves, right? And say, oh, well, it's just easier to just point fingers and not do the will of others, or to take instruction from others and not really create our own life out of fear, right? Like, am I doing it right? Is it going to show up right? So, I mean, it can go in a billion, quadrillion different ways. The reality is that we're in a time where we are able to create the very world that we choose to see. And it starts with you. It starts with you being able to understand who you are. Who are you? How do you participate in this world in a meaningful way? What are some of the things? Write them down. Write down, like, here's what I want to accomplish. Here's my goal. Here's how I want to make this world a beautiful place. Here's how I want to make this world look a little bit different. If I could support, in what way would I be supporting? What would it look like? So then you start to question and you can start to write things out. Now, goals, right? Obviously, goals are important. And I don't know how you guys do your goals. I'm going to show you how I do mine. It's just another way, another practice that you can utilize. If you have your way that works, awesome. But sometimes we have these goals and we don't necessarily hit them. And then we got to be honest with ourselves. Well, why aren't we hitting them? Like for me, myself, I want to talk about the goals that I had set for doing this abundance meditation. I really want to do this abundance meditation, but I don't seem to follow through with it. So that's me being authentic, right? And calling my own self out and saying, I'm not being held accountable, I'm not holding my word. Okay, so why am I not holding my word to this thing? And it's because I'm attached to the way it's supposed to look. I'm attached to the way it should come out. It should be people connected together that are committed to the 40 days with me, and not just me by myself doing it and hoping that certain people will show up. And so I'm putting all these blocks on why I'm not doing it. So then having to get to the real root of it. What is the real reason that I want to do this abundance meditation? Perhaps it's connection, to connect with other people, to feel the connection of spiritual sisterhood or brotherhood. And so really understanding that, can I create that connection of spiritual sisterhood and brotherhood in a different way? Does it have to look that way? So what looks like a broken commitment on the outside world is a broken commitment to myself in a certain way. So the process of understanding this, right? So why am I breaking my commitment? This is why. Because it has to look a certain way. I'm looking for connection to my spiritual brothers and sisters. And then am I asking myself, what is it? Am I showing that? Am I connecting to my brothers and sisters spiritually? Yes, I do. I feel connected to you guys doing Spirit and Coffee, but am I truly connected to you guys? I see your name show up. I hear some of the words you type or read. I don't know about here, but I read some of the words you type. But is there really a give and take energy here? And I think so, like you're participating and giving that way. but is there a connection, and like I can hear your voice, and like and no, there's not, because it's a one-sided thing. And so maybe spirit is saying, how do I then interconnect with the individuals? Good morning, Poetic. How do I interconnect with these individuals and facilitate a space where there's engagement, right? Where there's participation. So that's the biggest question, right? And so understanding, and I'm doing a process on myself to show you that when we start to get to the deeper meaning of what it is that we want to create, or why we're trying to do the things that we do, then we can start to create it in the actual physical world, and it may not look like we think it should look. So maybe I think it should look like abundance meditation, but maybe that's not it. Maybe it's going to show up in a different way. So calling forth the very thing that I'm requesting, the request to the universe or to God is not abundance meditation or the energy to do abundance meditation. That's not the request. The request is connection, spiritual connection to my brothers and sisters. Why am I looking for connection? What is it what is connection going to do for me? And we can even dig deeper into that. Well, connection to me means that I get to hear the worldviews of other individuals and see how they are shaping their world or understanding their world, to be curious about that, to be able to participate and connect and collaborate. It's a feeling of interconnectedness. You could go deeper than that. It's a feeling, I get it in my gut, and my gut just feels light. It feels light. And so does my heart. So it's a very light-hearted type of feeling and sensation. So the process that we do, and why am I going through the process to talk about how we get to create what happens next, is because when we're clear about how or what is coming up for us and how we want to participate in our spiritual realm and the material realm and put them together to create and mold something, that we then become the vessel of that creation. But the clearer that we are, the easier it is for us to actually create that thing. And we stop doing what feels forced. We don't need to do what's forced. Now, I'm not saying things don't take work, but if it's a painful force every time you're doing it and it's not showing up, and it's not right, because you'll show up just like spirit and coffee. I know that this is a divine calling because I had a calling, and this was the calling. And I've been doing it consistently for it's been about 2.5 years that I've been doing this. I do it regardless of who shows up. It doesn't matter to me, because that's not the point. The point isn't to have billions of people. The point is to be able to provide a platform, and that the individuals that show up hopefully will take away something meaningful. That they'll be able to contemplate new ways of looking at the world, that they'll be able to understand. So it's a divine calling, and it's a natural thing to do for me. So looking at the natural things that you can do, I appreciate you too, Poetic, thank you. And looking at the natural things that you can do in life, the things that you would do even if you're not getting paid. It sort of satiates, it's like the spirit, it's like my cup is full because I get to be in connection with you in this way. But there's still something deeper, right? There's still a deeper thing that I'm saying I want to create. I want to take it further. So how does it manifest further? Well, I could force it. I could force a connection and be like, okay, I'm going to set up a call. Who's all ready to get on a call? And then people say, yes, I'm ready. And then we're like committed to 40 days. And then 4 days in, and then the 5th day, no one shows up because it's by force. Things that flow naturally, And then I'm like, well, why am I doing this? And then it doesn't feel natural. Then I'm like, well, no one's showing up on this one. So, and there's an expectation from my side. So again, to be in flow is to not have expectations. So people, like for instance, people will say, like friends of mine and stuff, I'm sorry, I haven't listened to your Spirit and Coffee. I'm like, why are you sorry? You don't have to be sorry. I don't sit there and say, oh, they didn't show up today. No, people come in and out. Yeah, that's why it's called flow. Yes, exactly. People come in and out. People will show up. People won't show up. And it's okay. I'm like, it's okay. Whoever shows up was supposed to get whatever message I'm giving. That's the way I see it. Are they supposed to hear the part of whatever I'm saying, and maybe it hit home for that day, and maybe they just, or like with coaching, right? It's like with coaching, I'll coach individuals and then they'll be like, okay, I'm good, and they feel good because they have enough, they understand themselves enough, they know what their plan is enough, they're clear enough that they can take it themselves. I don't get upset when people stop coaching. I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad. That's what coaching's for. It's not to keep you to come back over and over again. It's to get you to actually be able to trust yourself enough, right? To trust yourself enough for you to be the creator of your life. Has nothing to do with me. But sometimes we do need a person to guide us. We're like, I need guidance sometimes. And every time I get guidance, what does it show up? It shows up that, oh, I had it within me the whole time. Good morning, Tony. Just like you all do. You guys all have it within you. Now, the trusting yourself is the part that gets a little bit complex. Because am I doing it right? It's like we're looking for the validation. So, I think it's when you're 100% like, I don't need the validation. I know what I'm up to. I'm going for it, right? And Tony is a great example. My cousin who's on here now. I hope she can stay on for a while. But that's a great example. You were like, I'm going to move. And I'm like, go for it, girl. Do it. And you were brave enough. And it was right for you. And it was the right thing because you haven't come back. So there you go. So we get to create the new, but it's finding our flow, finding what fits for us. Sometimes we look at other individuals and we're like, oh, I want to do what they're doing, right? And then we try it and we're like, I don't want to do that. Some people don't want it. Like, I want everyone to do live videos. And people are like, no, that's not for me. And I'm like, okay. So some people know, but some people are not 100% sure. They'll say, like, I want to do this. And then they'll try it and then they'll realize, oh yeah, I don't really want to do that. That's not for me. It's not my thing. So you then start to find your own unique way to express. For me, it's talk. I talk a lot. I think I never run out of words to say or ideas or content. I just love playing with words. It's obvious that I love to play with words and I love to explore what words mean and how we can shape the world around us using vibrational tonality of our voice. So, oh wait, Sue said something before. Let me see. I am glad you did this and we do value this. Oh, thank you, Sue. I value you guys. And really it's participatory in the way that it supports me to get out certain concepts and ideas and sort of explore them with you guys and hopefully the guidance and some of the practices and some of the stuff that we explore here will be sort of a catalyst for you. And that's why I talk about so many different things, because it's like different things work for different people. But if I trigger one thing that can support you on your path, you may explore that a little deeper. And it may be the actual catalyst needed to help you to create what it is that you're trying to create in your life, or your connection to God, or your connection to the universe, or manifestation into the material world. When we learn to do this, when we learn how to materialize from our God self, from pure spirit, from the spirit and not from our ego attachment to materialism. It flows, and it's sort of this abundant opening that happens. It allows the universe to be available to you. So then we start to see, and we get a little bit clearer and a little bit clearer. Now, that doesn't mean we don't pivot, right? We don't pivot. And sometimes when you're on your spiritual journey and you're creating and you're communicating with people about what you're up to and you pivot, okay, they tend to say, well, you said sometimes you'll get naysayers. I mean, that happens. That's part of the process. It feels painful. It's hard to get that kind of feedback from individuals, trust me. But the reality is it's your journey. And we have to pivot. That's part of it. Part of it is saying, oh, this isn't working this way. And the only reason you're pivoting is to get a little bit clearer about what you want to create and manifest. When I started these videos, I didn't start off doing Spirit and Coffee. My live videos started doing something called Artisans of Wealth. And really, I was curious about what wealth meant to people. I wanted to provide a space where people could manifest wealth. I was trying to support people to manifest wealth in their life. How do we create a wealthy life and realize that we have a wealthy life? So I was like, let me interview individuals and find out what they think wealth is. So I have a bunch of interviews that I did with individuals on live video when it first came out. And the interviews led me to understand that individuals pegged wealth into three very important things, which was their health, their finance, and then like community or spirituality. I mean, kind of synonymous, but a lot of people talked about that and giving back, right? Altruism is maybe the word I want to use for it. They were, how do we give back after we have all of these things sort of in place? But finances wasn't the number one thing. It was never the number one thing, because at the end of the day, we realize that the time that we spend with individuals, the time is precious. It's probably the most precious thing, that gift that God has given us, besides, our breath and all that, of course, but that's part of time. And so the time we know that we can't get back. So it's really, how are we filling the time? What is it that we're filling our time with? Because this is such a gift. And so after that, I said, well, I would do lives. And I kept saying that I was committing to doing lives every single day. I was like, every day I'm going to do a live video. And I just kind of ran out of, I was like, well, I tried to put it into like structure of like, okay, I'm going to talk about this today and talk about that. But I don't do well with that. That doesn't work for me, because I'm kind of like all over the place sometimes. So I said, wow. And then I was like, okay, that's not working. And I just was not sticking to my commitment of getting on lives every day. Right. Good morning, Curtis. Be seeing you soon. And then, so what did I do? Then I was reading a book, right? Because I love to read. And so I started reading The Christ Blueprint, 13 Keys to Christ Consciousness. And in that reading, I was like, the world needs to hear this. Okay. The world needs to hear this. How do I get the world to hear this? So I went on live because I was excited about my live videos. And I was like, you guys need to read this. And, I thought, hey, a billion trillion people are going to hear me say this. Well, that's not how live works. I think maybe 10 people showed up to my live video, whatever. And I still have maybe 10 people show up daily, or 5 or whatever. It's fine, right? It wasn't the point. But I wanted the world to hear this. So I said, well, how can I, if they're not going to read it, because I know most people, they're not going to read, and it's not a bad thing. It's just some people don't read. So I was like, okay, I'm going to read it. And then that's where it was like God said, this is what you're going to do. That is where, so it took a process to get to this point. Now, I didn't have Podbean until recently. I was just on my own personal Facebook Live for the longest time. Then I created a Spirit and Coffee recently Facebook page for the public. And I created this podcast live, just voice. And then I intermingled the two. So it's an evolution is what I'm saying. It's an evolution. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's not supposed to. It's supposed to flow and feel like you're like, you just sort of get it. I don't know how to explain the trick, and I'm sure you guys have had it. And I'd love to hear how you guys have just had that aha moment where you're like, this is it. But it took time. I know that the live videos were something I love to do. I knew that. But what was it? Like, I know I wanted to talk about spirituality, but how? How was I going to convey a message? How was I going to do it? I didn't know. So I just did it. I just jumped in. Good morning, Reggie. And then God, literally, I had an epiphany, and it was like God talked to me and he's like, this is it. This is what you're going to do. Now go do it. And I was like, okay, okay, whatever. And then it evolved from there. So literally, from that point on, I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And it's just a natural thing. It doesn't take effort for me to get up and do spirit. I look forward to it every single day that I do it. There's never been a time where I'm like, oh, I have to. I don't have to do it. That's the point. I don't have to. I could shut off and then never do it again. It's this calling to be able to express, to bring forth. So that is what I'm saying. We get to create the world we see. Now, I feel, and what I feel that this creation of this platform is an opportunity to insert love into cyberspace. Because so much, there's the dark web, there's all these things that are here on this platform. But how do we insert love into a place that, it's a whole other dimension, it's a whole other world. But these videos, right, are going to continue. They're somewhere in cyberspace, like the ones I've done years ago are somewhere out there. I don't know, they're just floating out there, but it's part of the web. So part of the web has love inserted in it. And that was my big thing. I was like, yeah, I can do that. That's a tiny thing that I can do. It's a little thing that I can do. So it's not about, oh, I'm going to make this huge impact on the world and I'm just going to be this huge. It's not about that. It's the little tiny thing that I want to just leave a little mark, right? And it's just like it's probably smaller than a grain of sand. And that's okay because it's my mark, right? So you guys have your mark that you get to leave. And it's what is that mark going to be? And that's how we create the new world. Little baby marks all over. And before you know it, it looks like a big, huge thing. Think about it like cities, right? Cities, before they had electricity, you couldn't see it from space. Like 1 or 2 lights you couldn't see. But New York, you can see from space now. You can see the lights of the United States lit up because one light is on, and as every single light starts to turn on, it shines so bright that even when you're up above, you can see it. So you're the light. So you get to leave your little mark, but your little mark is huge because why? Because as your light turns on, the other person's light turns on, the other person's light turns on, and before you know it, we illuminate. And then you can see it from the cosmos. We're like little glowworms. Be a glowworm. I don't know if you guys remember what glowworms are. I just remember my cousin had one and I wanted one so bad and I never got one. Okay, I left my job and pressed pause and phone call brought me. Oh, hold on. Let's see here. Let's see, I left my job, pressed pause, and a phone call brought me to care for elderly, and I love what I do now. That's so awesome. You have over 5,000 followers. Really? I do. I didn't even know that. I haven't really looked into how these things function. I just do it, get off. I don't know what I'm doing. My friend told me that I need an assistant. I said, oh, okay. I just assist myself. Although I do have my niece who does the Instagram posts. So all those posts, if you're on Instagram and you have looked at any of the Instagram posts, she's the one who does all the posts. I let her, she's a little Padawan, little Jedi in training, Padawan in training, which then becomes a Jedi. Okay. So again, that's how we create the new earth. So you're like little glowworms. So it's just maybe your light's a little dim right now, or maybe it's not. Maybe your light is bright. I don't know where you're at. Okay. I don't know where everybody's at. But you start to ignite that. And that's how we create the new earth. And then as you shine your light, others will find your light. They'll see it. They'll be able to connect. And before you know it, you're interconnecting what your vision is to other people's. And then it sort of like synergizes, it locks in like a puzzle. And before you know it, you're creating this beautiful world. I don't want to say society, but you're creating a whole new earth with individuals, communities. And those communities then expand out and they expand, and the expression of that expansion is love. It's love. It's love because you started with the intention of love. You started with the intention of I get to express my God self. And as we flow that out, we start to recreate and redesign a whole new earth. Because the connection right now, the way that the structures are set up, right, and it's starting to surface is that I'm just talking here in America and everywhere around the world, but there was a lot of trauma and violence to create the states. The history, and if you go back, the history is there. There was a lot of bloodshed, a lot of war. There was people that already occupied this land. So we know that America was built on bloodshed. It was. The people didn't just come here and say, okay, now we're here, we're happy, and we're all holding hands and singing kumbaya. That's not how it happened. We all know that. There was a lot of stress and a lot of fighting and wars and rapes and all these things that happen across this land to create what we have. Now we get to recreate it because we're at a time where that is happening. God is giving us the opportunity to recreate the land. So all of that starts with our light. When we create our light, we start to synergize and call forth the other lights of the world. The other lights start to communicate. And as we all start to communicate, we all start to create community, the community based on love, on the foundations of God's law. When we can create the foundation of God's law, we create a whole new earth, grounded in the principles of God. It's quite phenomenal, and it's happening. So you have the ability to create the new earth, the new planet, the new paradigm, the new way to engage. But in that, we will see the surface and the rise of the darkness because our lights are starting to shine. Is there anything wrong with that? No. Now, in the darkness that is exposed, and some people who may have been in the dark for a long time will come to the light and wake up and say, oh my God, what am I doing? Like they're sort of like in this slumber, and they wake up and they say, oh, I had an awakening. Like, whoa, what was that? And then they start to realize, like, I had an awakening. Well, yeah, your light's shining. Your little glowworm light has now went from however many megahertz to bigger. I don't know how that works, megahertz. I don't know if it's hertz. I think it's megahertz, right? Anyway, you're shining brighter is the point. And then you shine brighter, and then your brothers and sisters see you, and then their light gets a little brighter. And then before you know it, you have all these shiny glowworms, and the darkness it has nowhere to go. And the darkness can either try to find another cave to go to be dark, or they say, oh, look, I want to be light. And then they start to illuminate themselves. And that's how it works. So we have the opportunity to be glowworms. So go be a glowworm today. If you don't know what that is, just go online and you'll see what it is. So go be a glowworm, or you could be what are they, fireflies? Oh, no, what are they? The ones they, um, that light up in the night. I don't know what they're called. You guys can tell me. I forget what they're called. We don't have them here, but I've seen them in Michigan. Yeah, they're fireflies. Okay, cool. I was right. And they go bzz, bzz, and you can see them. Like, be a firefly. Like, bzz, 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 bzz. Before you know, it's like illuminating the entire cosmos. And that's the call to God. That's people coming together, interconnected in God's name, and saying, God, help us create the new earth. God will give you instruction, and you'll have your instructions. And they may look vastly different than somebody else's. They're going to, because you're you. You're uniquely you. So you have your gift and your instructions. And you go forth, you do those instructions, and then you see God's miracles happen everywhere. And the abundance starts to flow. And as the abundance starts to flow, you're able to give more. And then you start to realize that really you need nothing. And as you need nothing, you don't stay attached to materialism, because you understand that there's so much material in this world to be worked with that will never run out of material. And then you become the abundance and the flow of life. And your birthright could then now be manifest, and it doesn't have to be forceful. Okay. So tap into that. Remember, the new earth, the new paradigm is in works right now, and it is up to us to create it. It is up to us individually to create it, which is exciting. That's exciting to me. So there you have it. Also, I'm working on some other things. I'm going to try this abundance thing again, I think, or maybe I just figured out with you guys why I'm not doing it. But whether I do it or not, there are going to be some things coming up that I'm really super excited about. Things in my life that I'm working on, goals that I have. Just so you guys understand that there's like this little, like always working towards something new, something fun, something creative, and that I'd love to hear what you guys are up to as well. So if you want, also you can send me emails, questions, anything. If you guys have questions about anything, send it to spiritandbrew@gmail.com. You can send it there, and I will answer questions on here if you have questions. I would love to hear from you guys, and really here's some of your questions. If you're looking for insight, I can sort of answer questions from my perspective, or at least support you in maybe seeing it a different way if that's what you're looking for. But let me know. Good morning, Antonio, because that's what I'm here for. Okay. So awesome. I love you guys. I may or may not see you guys tomorrow. But enjoy your day. Thanks for starting mine. Thanks, Suze. I appreciate you. You're welcome. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully. It might be way later in the day. So there you go. Just gonna let you know that. Okay. Have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.